Hello, I'm here today to go over our notes on symbiotic relationships or interactions among living things. So, today's topic is all going to be centered on how organisms interact with each other, okay, other species or different species. We're talking, for example, in nature. All right. So, a lot of these are going to be in nature, not necessarily, in a zoo setting, but in nature, we're going to be centered on. So, interactions among living things. So, an organism's particular role or how an organism makes its living is called its niche. Okay, its niche. That's another vocabulary term. So, habitat is where they are, niche is how its job or its role within the ecosystem. So, there's going to be three different examples or three major types of interactions amongst organisms. So, one would be competition, next would be predation, where predator prey, and then the last one would be symbiosis, which is probably one of my favorite things to teach because of how nature works and how our organisms out there survive, which I think is really cool. So, of course, competition, you know all about competition, especially if you're an athlete or just in general. You're always competing to be better than those around you. So, the struggle between an organism to survive in a habitat with
You've got mail.
limited resources is really important. Okay, so that's competition. And like I said, I don't really have to explain that. That's pretty straightforward. Next would be predation. Predation is an interaction in which one organism hunts and kills another for food. So you're actually actively hunting and killing for food. So you think of, I think if you ever watch Natural Geographic or Planet Earth or any of those science shows, when there's one organism that's actively hunting to kill another organism for food. Okay, so there's lots of different examples. The organism that does a killing is the predator. The organism that is caught is the prey. So if you look here, predators a lot of times have adaptations to help them kill their prey. You think of a cheetah chasing down a gazelle. That cheetah's speed is its adaptation that helps it achieve its goal of getting prey. Right? Every organism needs food. Continuing, and this is an example you can see there. The cheetah can run very fast for a short period of time, enabling it to catch its prey. Another example of a predator adaptation, the jellyfish. You're like, how does a jellyfish? How is that a predator? The jellyfish's tentacles contain a poisonous substance that paralyzes the tiny water animals, enabling that jellyfish to feed upon it. Some predators have adaptations that enable them to hunt at night. For example, the big eyes of the owl let as much light in as possible to help them see in the dark. Okay, so they're nocturnal. Okay, that's a fancy word for being able to hunt at night. But with the predator adaptations, there's also going to be prey adaptations. So, how do prey organisms manage to avoid being caught by such effective predators? Well, luckily for them, a lot of times they have adaptations as well. They use camouflage so that they can avoid being
You've
caught.
got mail.
They use something called mimicry. Mimicry is mimicking another organism. So here's examples of camouflage. You can barely even tell, but there's a moth right here. There's a tree frog right there. So they blend in with the surroundings. This is your monarch butterfly and their vicary butterfly. Monarch butterflies are poisonous to any birds or any other mammals that feed on them. The vicary butterfly, believe it or not, is not. But over time, they have modeled the monarch butterfly so that when predators see, obviously they look very similar. They're mimicking the monarch butterfly, so they won't be able to be eaten by those birds or mammals. So that's your predator prey. Just think actively hunting and killing another for food. So first, so far we've talked about competition, predation, or predator prey relationships, and lastly is symbiosis. And I love, like I said, talking about symbiosis because I think it's just really cool how two totally different species come to have a close relationship with one another. Okay, and that's the definition where at least one organism is going to benefit. John Bennett and Heinrich Barry worked together to discover this idea of symbiosis, and they're both German scientists. So the three types are mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Okay, so they're your three examples of the symbiotic relationships. There's a brain pop right there if you would love or want to check it out. Again, mutualism. This is your first relationship. There's a mutual benefit. So I think of as a visual, both of them have an advantage of living in that close relationship with one another. So they both benefit. They're both happy, a good relationship. Pollination is your classic example of this. You can think in this is a hummingbird, and you see a plant right there, or a flower. The hummingbird will come to the flower because it's attracted to its nectar. Then, because the hummingbird likes it so much, it's going to go find other flowers that look very similar to that. Benefit to the hummingbird is that they are going to have food. The benefit for the plant, well, plants can't pick up their roots and move. So as a result, that nectar is going to allow them to reproduce. Okay, so they can deliver, or pollination, they can deliver nectar or pollen from one flower to the next, which is what allows them to reproduce. Okay, so benefiting both. Commensalism is a relationship in which one species benefits and the other one is neither helped nor harmed. A classic example of this would be the cattle egret and livestock. The egret benefits from this relationship because the livestock, whatever it may be, may have helped them find their meals, while the livestock are typically unaffected by it. So there's kind of a positive relationship and then a neutral relationship. It doesn't benefit them, it doesn't harm them. So you can kind of see this example. Okay, cows don't really seem to be affected by it, and that's the benefit. Last one, which is probably the grossest one, which for those of you who likes gross things, you're going to love parasitism. And it involves one organism living on or inside of another organism, harming it. Okay, so, and if you look at this link, I don't know if I think it was okay, it's not going to. There you go. This is a pretty cool video clip. If you don't like gross things, I would definitely recommend not watching it. But it kind of, I think, let it load for a minute. If you've ever seen the TV show Monsters Inside of Us, that's kind of how it all works. Okay, so it's loading. It's about a 2-minute video clip. So if you want to check it out, feel free. Of course, there's an ad too. So that's your parasites. And there's so many different examples of parasitism or parasites. A classic example would be a mosquito feeding on the blood of humans or dogs or cats or whatever. They get their food or their nutrients from the human. And then the human, a lot of cases, wouldn't be harmed. But if you think maybe that mosquito is carrying a deadly virus, so like the West Nile virus, then you have potential of getting harmed or getting sick. This is another gross example. Cluster nematodes, which are roundworms, are found in the gut of your puppies or in dogs. You know that if you have a puppy, you always get them taken care of, making sure that they have their medicine. A lot of times is to avoid an overabundance of these parasites. There's lots of other examples, a tick on humans, anything, a tapeworm, if you've heard of that example. My favorite thing about parasites is that they really want to be inconspicuous. They really don't want that host organism to know that they're there, because if they know that they're there, that host organism is going to do something about it, right? Especially humans. So a parasite is technically an organism that is receiving food and shelter at the expense of another organism without giving anything in return, okay, or harming them. The host is the organism that does not benefit from the relationship, and that's the organism that is typically harmed. And then if you look at this little visual, this is another video clip. It's just some examples of symbiotic relationships in nature. So again, just to overview, there's 3 basic types of relationships amongst organisms. There's competition, usually for resources, food, shelter, water, etc. There's going to be predation, which one organism is actively hunting and killing another organism for food. And then lastly is your symbiotic relationships. And there's 3 categories to them. Again, you have mutualism, which is both organisms benefit. Commensalism, one organism benefits, the other one is neutral or not harmed or benefiting. And then lastly is parasitism, which is kind of, again, monsters inside of us, right? There's organisms that are going to benefit and the other organism is going to be harmed. Okay. And they don't want to be harmed so much that they're going to die, but they're going to be harmed enough, that, if something went wrong or there's too many of them, then they could eventually die, right? So that's your notes for your symbiotic relationships. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to help. And I can also tell you This is the last set of notes for the school year. So congratulations on making it through the school year. This is your last set of notes that you'll need to do. Have a great day.